All right.
I'm proud of us. I
Good job.
made I made notes on my phone and I wrote down my jokes so I could remember them this time.
Very good. Are we ready? I'm starting us off this time, so it's quite exciting.
I know.
Hello, and welcome to Young Adult Reviews, where two youngish adults review books meant for much younger adults.
Or children.
I'm Chloe.
And I'm Honor, and this week we are discussing Lore by Alexandra Bracken. And if you haven't read it yet, here's the spoiler warning.
We'd also like to include a content warning for this episode for sexual assault, both in the book that we're reading and the fact that we'll be discussing it.
All right, and let's get into it with the summary.
Yeah, just a quick summary for us right here.
Quick one, yeah.
Yeah, it's I typed this out so we had like a better structure than last time because the summary for last time was all over the place. It ended up being 2 pages and I could not bring myself to cut any of it out. So
It's very detailed. It's great. Gives you all the info you need.
at least if you haven't read the book, you won't be lost. That's the goal. Everyone's
Facts.
excited.
Mm-hmm. The book starts out with Laura Perseus, the main character, and she is the last survivor of her line. The rest of her family was killed during the Aegon, which is something that happens for 1 week every 7 years. The Aegon happens as a way to punish 9 Greek gods who tried to rebel against Zeus, and it also gives the descendants of mortal Greek heroes the opportunity to kill the gods and gain their immortality and power.
Some of the main players in the struggle are the Cadmedes, the Acolytes, the Persides, the Thucydides, which are like the descendants of Perseus, but no one really cares about them. They're like allied with someone, but that doesn't matter. And then also the Odysseus. Odysseus? What? How did you say it?
Odysseus? Because, like,
Odysseus
Odyssey?
nuts.
My mother is napping. I can't laugh out loud.
That's my joke. That's my one joke. Good night. Okay.
Wow. Anyway, we enter the story at the start of the Aegon, and we immediately realize that the Cadmedes are very bad dudes, as we see Aristos Cadmos, their leader, just flat out kill Hermes in cold blood. Mortal Kombat fatality, totally brutal. Epic death. You know, what can I say?
Laura's tried to distance herself from her old life after her family's death and has been living with her friend Miles and a bachelor professor named Gil, who died a little before the start of the Aegon. This year, the Aegon is taking place in New York City, where Laura lives. She gets pulled back into her old life when her best friend, that she believed to be dead, Castor Achilleos of the Acolytes, shows back up into her life to warn her about Aristos.
Castor leaves with his cousin Vander and asks Laura to come find him, but she goes back to her apartment to skip town instead. She comes back to her apartment to find Athena, who is one of the last of the old gods, bleeding out on her doorstep and asking for her help.
Laura eventually relents and binds her fate to Athena's, ergo the words on the cover, which means that if she dies, Athena will too, and vice versa. Athena promises to kill Aristos, who Laura believes murdered her family, so that Laura will not have to ascend to godhood.
Laura goes to find Castor to heal Athena, but upon showing up at his estate, realizes that he is the new Apollo. But this bitch has cancer. How did he kill a god? Castor doesn't know. We'll come back to it later.
So Laura and Castor escape a confrontation with Artemis and return to Athena and Miles at Laura's apartment, meeting Evander there, and from that moment on, the hunt is really on.
Additional allies emerge as Laura and company try to find the extended version of the Aegon poem that tells them how to end it. This takes them to the Odysseus estate, where Laura encounters her old friend Iroh. Laura lived with the Odysseus after her family died, but had to leave after killing their leader, who sexually assaulted her.
Eventually, it comes to light that the extended poem is inscribed on the Aegis, an heirloom that belonged to the Persides and was stolen by the Cadmedes. It's like a shield of legend that has the power to shoot lightning, and it was wielded by Athena in battle. The Cadmedes can't use it without permission, so they require Persides' blood.
Aristos already knows the extended poem, so Laura splits off from Castor and the others against their advice to go with Athena to track down the Cadmedes alone. During this time, they encounter Tidebringer, who is a part of Laura's lineage that killed Poseidon. She is said to be the ruin of Laura's family because she was a woman who dared to grab the power of the gods.
Athena kills Tidebringer, then turns her blade on Laura. Turns out all she ever wanted from her was the Aegis, which Laura stole from the Cadmedes 7 years before, and Athena is the one who truly killed Laura's family. Lore almost dies before being found and healed by Castor. They make out, then they go to retrieve the Aegis.
Because nothing says a good makeout session like death being brought upon the world around you.
Okay, I've said it once, I'll say it again. Nothing hits like end of the world sex in books.
There
And
unfortunately
I will die by
is
that.
there unfortunately is none in this book.
Yeah, it's not even implied. I can't even make that joke.
It's not even implied, but they do kiss a couple times. Well, if you will. You know?
Yeah, almost always before or after great danger, so I'll take it.
Laura reunites with her crew for the final attack, where Athena has already allied with Aristos. Laura realizes the extended version of the poem means that the gods must ask for forgiveness and make a meaningful sacrifice in order for the Aegon to end. Athena kills Aristos and sacrifices her life for Lore's, giving her the power of a god in order to save her city.
Lore saves the day and reunites with her friends, cherishing the time they have before the Aegon ends. Castor finally dreams that Apollo did the same sacrifice for him in order to cure him of his cancer. Lore and Castor ask for Zeus to release them of immortality, and he answers their wishes. They all live happily ever after. The end.
The end.
The end. Honor, what did you think about this book?
I loved it. Oh my god. Okay, so to me, it's kind of like, Rick Riordan, Percy Jackson meets the Hunger Games.
That is a very great way to put it. I would absolutely agree.
Right? Like the two had a little book baby, and it's Lore. And I just adored it. I really appreciated the speed of the book. There were like a couple times it lulled a little bit, but it was in reference to the characters needing like time instead of the plot line needing time. So it kind of switched between plot driven and character driven, which I really enjoyed.
I also really enjoyed kind of the character driven aspect of the story because there was just like such a diverse and fun, quirky cast of characters, quirky cast and crew. I really enjoyed all the characters. I didn't want to throttle any of them in a like, oh my god, what the hell are you doing? Because I'm going to be honest, the Athena betrayal I did not see coming. But when I realized what was happening, it was just like this sinking pit of dread in my stomach. And I was like, oh no.
Okay, so I was wondering about that because you said there were two things that you didn't figure out beforehand.
Yes.
So I kind of saw the Athena thing coming because I was very confused. Usually when in stories they have fates kind of bound or lives kind of bound together in the way that Athena and Lore were supposed to be, which is if one dies, the other dies too. It's usually if they're hurt in any way, shape, or form, that appears on the other, or they feel that pain. But there was nothing of that in the whole book. And I was like, how are they tied together if Lore's getting all these constantly getting all these wounds, like these deep shoulder gashes and things, that one of which almost brought her to the brink of death with all like little shards of glass stuck in her. And Athena's just willy-nilly like, hey, life's all great, what's up? Get yourself together, bitch. Like,
yeah, no, I see what you mean by that, but Athena was so good at manipulation. She gaslight gate kept girl bossed me along with Lore. She was so good at it. I didn't see it coming. Good. And then like Lore was looking back and she's like, oh my god, she kept trying to separate me from the group. She kept like only telling me certain things as like she thought it was a sign of confidence, but it actually wasn't. It was just an attempt to mislead her. I didn't realize it until she was looking back. I just like usually when a character is being manipulated, you can kind of see it a little bit. I did not see it at all personally.
I saw it because I didn't see it to the full extent, but I saw it in some of the little things that she would say. So she would say things like, come with me, what we have to do next, they're not going to understand. And it's like, okay, so you're now
gaslighting.
That's the gaslighting.
Gaslighting.
You're making Lore, you're making Lore believe that her friends will never understand herself and her goals.
No, because like I remember reading like, oh, they won't understand. And I was like, yeah, it sounds like a stupid idea to go find Artemis. Why would they want to do that? They don't understand. And I was like along with her, which is so crazy to me.
They don't understand because they would also think it's a stupid thing. And they would be like, no, that is stupid. Don't do that.
For real. I think like part of me that was so willing to believe that Athena was good was because I was rooting for her. When we all had like our Percy Jackson phases when we were 12 or whatever, I feel like Athena was like one of the cool gods and everyone wanted to be Athena because Annabeth was Athena. And like, I was rooting for her. I wanted Athena to be good. I wanted her to have this moral center. but she wasn't, and all the gods are dicks. And that's the long and the short of it.
That's because they're not mortals. They don't think the same way that mortals do. They don't have that moral that they need in
I
a
wanted
way.
her to be good so bad.
I was like, she's a god. She can do her own thing. I was not surprised. I don't
Yeah,
think I expected it fully because I think I also wanted to believe for her in her, but I was not surprised.
fair enough.
But the one I was so sure that Miles at the first couple times that Miles was gonna be not good or something like that, or gonna get himself killed, because every time he was arguing, he was like, "No, I can go to these, secret meetings all alone. Like, I don't need anybody to come with me." And I was like, "That's suspicious, sir. That's suspicious. You don't know anything about this world. You don't know how to protect yourself, and you're gonna argue that you have to go alone? That's suspicious."
Hmm. Okay, so
And
here's my thing with Miles. I knew they weren't gonna kill him because he was like the mascot.
oh my god, he was such a mascot. He was
And I
so
don't
cute.
mean that in like a belittling way, but not only was he the mascot, but I called
He
from
was
the
the gay
moment that
icon.
what?
He was the gay icon.
Not in like a belittling way. I knew from the moment that Miles and Evander encountered each other that they were going to end up together.
Okay, but they're so cute.
Okay, they are, but the moment when they first encountered each other, it says Miles. It said something like Miles' ears tinged pink or something. So like he was blushing, and I knew that they weren't going to kill either of them. I knew both of them were safe from that moment on because of the bury your gays trope, and people are so actively trying to work against that at this point in literature. So I knew they were going to be safe, or at least I hoped they would. I really
Uh,
hit that part.
I missed that part.
You did? No, I
Yeah,
called that from the very beginning.
I caught it when they were talking and Evander was talking about how he's always jealous of Laura because, she'd spent more time with Kaz and everything. And 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 Miles was like, "Oh, so you love him?" Like just flat out. And I was like, "That's it. They're in love now. They are the ones."
Also, it'd be kind of weird for like I don't think that Evander and Castor were. I don't think Evander was into Castor at all because A, it feels more like a brotherly love, and B, they're cousins. So like that would be
Yeah,
they're like a distant
yeah.
cousin, but it'd still be really weird. Another twist that I didn't see coming, or the only other twist I didn't see coming rather, was Hermes being Gil. I didn't see that
Same.
coming at all.
I guessed it like 2 pages ahead of time, which I don't think counts for guessing it.
It only dawned on me when the new Dionysus told Laura that Hermes has been living with her for the entire past 7 years or whatever. I was like, oh shit, because that fucked her up a little bit because she thought that she had so much control over her life, and she didn't because she thought she was like making the decision to step out of that life, making the decision to step out of the Aegon. But in reality, that choice was never hers to make because it always found her.
If you were a part of this book, what role do you think you play? Like, would you be a hunter? Would you want to be a god? Would you want to be one of the messengers?
I'd
What would
want to
you?
be not part of it.
So an unblooded, as they
I'd want
call
to be
them.
unblooded. Who the fuck would want to be part of this crazy world? Not even Lore wanted to be part of this,
I think
especially as women.
I think it could be fun.
You think it could be fun?
Just like not actually doing anything, any part of the Aegon, but just straight up murdering all of the hunters that were misogynistic, because no one's gonna question why they died during that time.
I guess that's fair if no one saw it.
Right? Vigilante, justice. Okay, how about what did you think of the book before you started reading it, like based off the cover, based off the little synopsis, and what do you think of it now?
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I read like the blurb on the back, or not on the back of the book, but like on the inside cover, because it was
Mhm.
like what was on the Barnes and Noble website when I was looking to compare the prices when I bought it in store, which I did get it for cheaper. It's cheaper
Heck
on the
yeah.
website than if you buy it in stores. Everyone, that's a pro tip for you.
And that's why
Um,
you always check all your resources before you buy.
yeah, I checked the website and I said, "Do y'all price match?" And they said yes, and I pulled it up.
Mhm.
So I got like $5 off, I think. I don't know. It was a good deal.
Nice.
It was a good deal. I thought that she was dead ass like a Gorgon. living in ancient Greece. And I thought this book was like set in ancient Greece. And then like I opened up the book cover and I saw a map of Manhattan and I was like, oh, that's a surprise. I didn't. Yeah, so in terms of judging a book by its cover, don't do this one. Sometimes you can, but this one you can't. 'Cause I was very
I also fell into the Gorgon trap because I thought she was gonna be like one of those or become one or something like that. Just literally just because of the cover, where you can literally see there's the Gorgon Medusa on the front, and then there's like in the circle of the O for lore is her eye.
Mhm.
And I was like, ah, okay, I can pick up the clues of that. I could not.
You said, I
But
know exactly what's going to happen. She did not know exactly what was going to happen.
she did know that it was in New York because she read the third paragraph of the synopsis where it says, "Yet as a hunt dawns over New York City."
Listen, listen. You think I read? You think I fucking read?
Only on occasion.
Only sometimes.
Only when we pick books to go over. Okay, so I had a little thing though. So I didn't know when this was set because for some reason I thought this was released way earlier than it was. This book was released in January of 2021. I
Yeah.
thought it was at least a year older than that. So I was gonna make a joke when I got to page 95, and page 95, you hear Philip, who was the leader of the
Acolytes.
yeah, leader of the Acolytes at the time, talking to Castor, who is the new god, and saying, basically, sorry. So basically, new gods help out their families to earn money and things and use their powers to basically manipulate the world in favor of their families. So Philip was asking that Castor do this by setting a plague upon the world, and my brain went, haha, so that's how we got COVID-19.
I mean, who says he didn't do it?
The fact that this was actually 2021, and so they were asked a little bit late. Also, proud of Castor of saying no, absolutely not.
Okay, he was a well-written man written by a female. I liked it. Like, you know that thing where it's like, I don't like men, I like men written by females?
Yes, I do.
Castor is one of those men.
Mm-hmm.
He gets a pass.
I agree. Anyway, I thought it was funny that they were like, please make a disease so that we can make a cure and make money off that. And I was like, cough, cough, COVID. But not really, though. Also, oh my god, can we please talk about how freaking clueless Lore is?
Well, she was manipulated by Athena. What do you mean clueless?
I'm talking about straight up right in front of her facts. And she's like, don't see it. So, for example, the biggest one that is like first thing first is she is trying to get out of the Achilles' house.
Mm-hmm.
And she runs into this room that's been unlocked, and Castor's old dog is sitting on the bed, and she goes, this must be Philip's room, which
like, this
she
is
then
Philip in Acantha's room.
Yes, which she then later in the story says that she has been in their room before, which means she knew that room wasn't theirs. Like, this girl
she's like, I just saw my childhood best friend is actually a god, and this is a very nice room, and his dog's in it. Must be Philip and Acantha.
Literally.
That one made me laugh.
I want to know, what was the, like, schooling life of these children, right? Because they discuss the fact, that they get all of this physical training, either for the girls that aren't hunters to, become women for the adult men when they're, like 12. Not great. They're groomed,
at their first blood, as the ancient law dictates. I think it's also a really good critique on, well, this is how it's always been done according to this ancient book. And it's like, why should we follow an ancient book if it's fucked up?
Literally. Especially when they had already changed the laws for the men and the young boys, but not for the girls. And then they have this whole thing where the hunters, are raised to fight and they get all the training for that, but they never discuss actual school training for these kids, and obviously like Laura knows some stuff because she can read text messages off her phone, but like when did she learn that? She talks specifically about not going to school. She talks about her parents being busy and like not teaching her stuff. She talks about being different from all of the school children so she doesn't need to do the stuff that they do. And obviously she didn't go to school when she was with Gil because she was taking care of him. So like what kind of school training do these kids get, and when did they get it?
I feel like she probably knows reading, basic math. That's it. She might know like a little bit of science, but it sounds like most of their training was in mythology. And she did have like a book of Greek myths that her parents gave to her, so maybe that's how they taught her how to read, just as like a basic means of survival in New York City. I can't
right, but like
without knowing how to read.
People are like, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, and she's like, what's a cell?
Maybe she educated herself. Who can say?
I hope so. Can you imagine though? Like, it's no wonder that these kids just accepted their fate and what they were being told all the time, because they weren't being taught the world. Like, they were so exclusively in this mindset of the ancient Greek life and the Aegon that they had to all grow up and fight in and become legends, or they were disappointments to their families, and like they got nothing from it.
Well, bro, it's a cult. They isolate them from knowledge of the outside world and tell them that this is the only world that they need to be.
It's literally a cult.
Everyone else is wrong. And I think that also goes to stay with like the double standards between
That's so messed up.
Because it's like, I don't know if it was meant to be an allegory for Christianity in that aspect, but it feels like it just a little bit. I don't know. I feel like it's impossible to not interpret it in a contemporary lens with how far the separation of church and state people deem is appropriate. Like,
yeah, there was no separation here.
Oh yeah, girl, I know.
They said, actually, we're gonna make it the same thing.
Actually, our state laws are the Bible.
Also, how has no one noticed the pattern that every 7 years, one of these 3 or 4 cities gets like freaking decimated for a week?
To be fair, I feel like in terms of how disastrous these things usually are, this one was the worst one, if not forever, a very long time. Because what must have they have thought was happening? Like 2 young girls dead inside of a bowl, floods in the streets, bombing of a very public street. Like, all these people are dead. They must have thought it was like a terrorist attack meets natural disaster all at once, right?
Literally.
But it
was freaking insane.
I have to believe that normally it's not that chaotic.
Are we saying that 9/11 was during the Aegon?
Can we joke about that? Is that allowed?
I have no idea. But they were like, terrorist attack. And Laura was like, actually, no, it was gods, Greek gods.
Was George W. Bush a member of the Aegon? That's what I'm asking.
That's the question here. He was actually one of the new gods. And you're just right out. Actually, that would be really smart on their part to put one of their family members into a position of power like that.
Well, that's what they try to do with like the influence of the gods. So, yeah. I'm sure they have politicians in high places. I
just keep coming up with there were just like little tidbits that I thought of while I was reading. Also, the biggest frickin' one, because it came up twice, was that they had their phone sounds on. And I don't know about you, but I know 0 teenagers that keep their phone sound on.
Okay, but they had a story reason for it. It was Miles's mom making him do that. I knew that was going to be a problem.
It's 2021. People have watches that tell you, vibrate, or they'll put it on vibrate, not sound.
I knew that was going to be a problem, though. From the moment Laura heard his loud-ass ringtone in, like, the diner, she was like, and you haven't changed it? I'm like, and he's not gonna before it becomes a real problem either.
Literally. Oh, my God. But no teenagers do that.
I mean, fair enough.
Oh, that annoyed the hell out of me. Because later, you see Laura she just finished like dying or something, and so she was sending a text saying she was like alive. She got responses back and it was like ding ding ding, and it's like, Laura, you of all people should know not to have your sound on.
I thought her near-death experience was really beautiful. I thought it was like, and she's like, and I hear chimes, and like, and then like she realized that journey to the afterlife that she was taking was really her getting up and walking to where she had reception to save her life. She was like, did I like, was that all a dream? Was it real? And then like she looks at where she was, and then she looks at where she is, and she's like a few feet back in the tunnel, and I would not have gotten the phone messages because I wouldn't have gotten reception.
I did like the parallels that she had between the Eurydice story
And
and
Orpheus.
like not looking back.
Mhm.
Yes. And Eurydice and Orpheus and not looking behind her.
Mhm.
And she was like, because if I look behind me, I will never get out. I was like,
Mhm.
yes, thank you. There
I
were so many good parallels, and they brought in so many of the Greek stories that like fit so well into this.
I thought it was really wonderfully woven together, but in terms of pacing, I absolutely adored the pacing. Like after I hit like part 3, part 4, because it's divided into 5 separate parts, and I like just could not put it down. I was like trying to find any excuse that I could to read this book. But I will say that in the beginning it throws a lot of stuff at you all at once. There's like a table of contents with like a cheat sheet for the gods and who has what god and what their symbols are and who they're a descendant of. And then it has a prologue from Aristos's point of view. And I was like, when is this happening? What is going on? Who are these people? And I was very disoriented for like a little bit. And then it immediately goes to Lore in the fighting ring. And I'm like, now who are these people that she apparently knows? And then, but you get into it quick enough. I thought it was a lot to throw at a reader at once, at least a lot for me to take at once. But once you got into it, could not put it down. So good.
See, I read so many like fantasy books where they just straight up throw you into world building that I was like, you know what, I'm not even gonna look at this table, I'll figure it out eventually. And I just kept going until it made sense.
That's kind of the frame of thought that I had to adopt in order to like not agonize myself with confusion and questions. I was just like, this will be explained
Hmm.
eventually, and it was. So there were no
Yep,
loose threads at the end of the book, I will say.
I agree with that. That was actually very nice, especially because I thought with how they were throwing just tidbits of like has this story about how he became of God in that we weren't going to find out
Hmm.
the actual reason and how it happened. And then it luckily came to him in his dreams, so.
I didn't like how close to the end that they put that. It felt kind of shoehorned in there and like, oh shit, I didn't discuss this. A dream. And then you put it in, it was literally like the last 5 pages of the book where they talk about it. It just felt not super organic to me. It's like, by the way, this final thread that we need to get tied up, here it is, all wrapped up with a bow. I liked the storyline itself, just didn't like how it was introduced into the storytelling, or ended in the
Mhm.
storytelling rather.
Yeah, I agree that it was kind of like thrown in there kind of willy-nilly because they were like, I just need to wrap this up. But I think that it was purposely done that way because if they had introduced it earlier, it would have spoiled the reason for like how the gods ascend again in the Aegon ends.
I wish that it had been introduced before Laura went into the final battle, but I understand why it wasn't, because that was kind of her conclusion to draw as kind of an
Hmm.
end to one of her storylines in terms of her relationship with Athena and giving Athena to give that opportunity for redemption. It was something that she had to come to herself to and have this big realization. And then Castor was like, by the way, you were totally right.
She's like, hair flip, I know.
She's like, I know. But I wish that Hermes had lived, like not lived, but gotten out of the Aegon, because I feel like he was more selfless in his life than Athena was in hers, especially in like the final 7 years. Because we can't forget, as much of a girl boss as Athena is, she did kill like a baby and a very young child to get a shield that was a symbol of her father's love, which I thought that was very fucked up. That I know that it was important to Laura's character arc to forgive her and kind of let her have that redemption. But oh my god, like she said something and she's like, I'm doing this for my sisters who are forever unfinished people. And I was like, and you're forgiving her? That line broke my fucking heart. I was like, oh shit.
Well, it's either that or she lives on forever with that hatred and that trauma that she had.
Or she just
Because
dies. Oh, I thought we were talking about Athena still.
no. Oh my god.
Uh,
Hi, Laura. You could just die.
no, Athena betrayed her and she revealed that she was the one to kill Laura's family, and I was like, okay, she, like I was ready for her to like
Hmm.
take the shot, you know?
Yeah,
But
I kinda almost wish she had gotten Athena earlier, but I get why she didn't.
I just kind of wish Hermes had the same redemption because when it was revealed that he was Gil, I think Hermes had more compassion in his life and more sacrifice in his life than Athena ever did. And it sucks that he didn't die with sacrifice because he might have. Who can say? He might have, but he didn't get a chance, which is so interesting to me because he initially it was self-serving and he took Lore in to kind of get tabs on the Aegis or the Aegis, however you say it. Uh
Well, he did it because he felt guilt because he had been the one to tell Athena about the fact that she took it, and Athena went and murdered her entire family.
well, that's another way to
So
argue
I
that it was self-serving. But there's a but. Then he took Miles in. Why would he take Miles in? He doesn't have a reason.
well, they said he just liked Miles.
I all the gods seem to like Miles. Athena's like, I like you.
Honestly, fair.
But still, like he wouldn't
He's
have a
so fun.
reason.
Yeah, I don't think Hermie was actually after the Aegis.
I don't think he was either, but he was trying to keep tabs on it, just to be like, hey, what's the situation? Not trying to like retrieve it or
I
anything.
don't I don't think he was. He never asked her about that. He never asked her about her past. He never asked her anything that would show that he was hinting towards, where is it? How can I help you hide it? Like he was protecting her. He
Mhm.
was saving her from all of the gods, but he had nothing that pointed to protecting or looking for that.
No, for sure. And I would argue that Laura's tangential to it, though.
Yes, but only if it had been that he had shown signs of that being his one of his purposes for protecting her.
Okay.
But it wasn't.
I don't agree.
That's okay. You don't have to agree.
Well, because he didn't ask about her past, which why would he ask about the agate? Maybe he was just hoping that she'd talk about it of her own free will, just as she had about her entire past. You know,
But why would she? She never talked about her past to him.
I would argue that Laura gave him
Was
more half truths.
yeah, half truths, but nothing about anything that dealt with the Greek mythology and that whole side of her life.
Oh well, of course not. Well, maybe he was hoping she'd open up about it eventually. I don't know, because she had opened up about so many other things.
But they're told, don't talk to unbloodeds about any of this. So she wouldn't have because she viewed him as an unblooded.
But she brought Miles into it anyway.
Only because he had already overheard and they were in the middle of the
We are never
Aegon.
going to reach a consensus on this.
No, we're not.
Maybe we should just drop it.
we can drop it. How did your opinion of the book change as you read it?
Well, like I said about the pacing, went from like a little overwhelmed and kind of confused to very much in it and following the thread of the plot. I thought it was I never really doubted it. I was just like a little disoriented at first, but I think it was super well written and quite enjoyable. The end felt a little hollow to me. I don't know about you, but it's just like, please release us of this burden. And then like the wind blows by, and then they're like free, and they're like not gods anymore. And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
yay. And it's a happy ending. I just felt like it was a little eh.
So here's the two things that I have about that. So,
Mhm.
one, it made sense for them to give up their powers because she always wanted to be out.
Oh,
Like she
absolutely. Yeah.
never wanted to be a part of it. So it makes sense that she would immediately say, "Take this away from me." Also, by doing that, it ends the Aegon forever. So
Right.
that
And
makes sense that she did that.
I
Go
didn't
ahead.
like that they asked for their powers to get taken away. I'm just saying I didn't like how it happened. I thought there would be like a
Well,
different way.
I don't think it could have been another way just due to the timing of it because they were so close to the end. And I think if they had waited, they would have been stuck with it, with the powers.
I guess that's fair.
Yeah. And then, two, I almost kind of wish they had kept it because, first of all, two lovebirds for eternity. Absolutely adorable. I love that.
Stop.
Also,
That's another one of
powerhouse
my favorite
couple,
tropes.
right? Also,
Yes.
powerhouse couple. They they were a powerhouse. But also this. So Castor got healed because he got the god's power.
I see where you're going with this. I haven't thought about it.
So I understand that technically he could have healed like all of the issues before they took the power away, but technically by taking the power away, doesn't he go back to being ill with
Even if he did
terminal
get rid of all the
leukemia?
cancer, I feel like all his cells would still be like predisposed to like making cancer, you know,
Right?
and not killing cancer. Because that's the thing. Like, I don't.
So it would
This
have
is in, like
healed
my
the
freshman year in high school biology class. So correct me if I'm wrong, but our bodies make cancerous cells every single day. They're just most people are just really good at killing them. But people who get cancer just like they miss a few and they start multiplying and it's too many. So
Mhm.
maybe Castor's body is just going to go back to having cancer, which is a little bit sad. But maybe Apollo has an eye on him.
That's what I'm worried about. But also to wrap back towards the previous conversation of their education, they might not know that. They didn't learn science.
Oh no. That's a sad ending. Let's not talk about that. I don't want Castor to have cancer anymore. About Apollo's keeping an eye on him. Apollo survived the Aegon. He's gonna keep an eye on Castor. The end.
Also, if he did truly like heal himself from the magic or the powers that he had,
Mhm.
he probably would have healed every single cell that was doing that. So there wouldn't be anything left to regenerate. Is the thought process with that, hopefully.
Hopefully. Yeah. I'm just gonna say Castor's okay because it would make me sad if it wasn't.
I'm
But
sorry for bringing that up. I thought about it, okay? I had
you
to.
thought about it, so you had to.
Do you have any questions still about the book or the characters or, just story in general?
Well, I mean, besides the does Castor still have cancer thing?
I'm
Um,
sorry I brought it up.
yeah, that's depressing. That can't be how it ends. I think there were a lot of threads that were answered, and I'd love to see like where they go. But I feel like this
Mhm.
is meant to be a standalone kind of thing. I don't know if there's like a sequel in progress.
Mhm.
Do you know if there's like a
No,
sequel pending?
it's a
I don't know.
standalone.
I would like to see how the characters are doing. In like but like not in like a whole I want to read a whole nother book about this way, just in like a ending credits to a movie kind of way, where it's like Lore went on to do this. Miles graduated from Columbia. Cause that
So
was
like 2000s teen rom-com movie
yeah,
ending credits.
yeah. Like a Breakfast Club kind of thing. Except not they didn't do that at the end of the Breakfast Club.
Well, they did the song where he was like air punching
Yeah.
woo as he walked
Yeah.
across the field.
But I want like the captions with that. Song from the
We can make
Breakfast
our own.
Club with
Do you wanna
updates for all the
come up with
characters.
stories for them? And then I'll put like if you wanna come up with stories for them, I'll put like really dramatic music underneath and we can make it ourselves. Yeah.
Is that a good bit to do? Is that worth
I think
pursuing?
that's I think that's worth pursuing. Okay, so so Miles and Van clearly get together. They absolutely love each other. They're the cute gay boys that we must all protect. And I think that they would move in with Lore because Lore would not be able to say no.
Fair
They would
enough.
all move into the big house together.
The Brownstone.
The brownstone that Hermes left them.
And then Castor is there too. He becomes like an emergency services person. He
I got
absolutely
it.
became a member of the New
Firefighter.
York City Fire Department. Miles graduated from Columbia and finished his internship in sustainability. I don't know. He's stopping global warming. Let's just leave it at that.
He would.
He would.
Lore went on to continue teaching self-defense classes.
Lore starts her own self-defense gym, and she also
Gets therapy.
gets therapy.
Iroh would still keep in touch with everybody. I feel like she'd go back home though, kind of lead
Go to her
her
mom.
people.
Mhm.
Yeah, lead her people. Chiron comes to
It's a
live
fire
with.
department dog.
No, he's too old for that. He's like 14
you're
years
right.
old already. So he comes to live with them. They give him a little plant room so he can enjoy the plants. Lots of dog beds for him, and a bay window.
That's kind of a lot of construction costs.
Oh please, they probably already have it in that house.
You're right. So he's happy. He's living out the rest of his years in peace. He probably doesn't have any left. Very old
Exactly.
dog.
And they spoil him. They give him like people food so that he's like super happy. Yeah.
Oh, and because he's not a god.
He likes
Because Castor's not
he
a
likes
god.
Castor again.
Yeah. So that's
He does
that
like-
plotline resolved.
He likes Castor again. Yay.
Thank God. I feel like Van would enter politics. I just feel like it. Like the CIA or something. I feel like he has a future in civil
'Cause
service
what
just because he's like so good at blackmailing people.
he's already got the spy territory down. So yeah. Is that everybody? I think that's everybody.
That's everyone. I think there were like 6.
Yeah. And then Athena and Apollo watch over them from above, and they're like these stupid kids. The end.
Me. I think I was really rooting for Athena because they went with the more modern interpretation of the Medusa myth, where Medusa was one of Athena's favorite priestesses, raped by Poseidon in an Athenian temple. And then, as the story goes, Athena cursed her, quote unquote, to turn people to stone with just a look, kind of thing. But Athena was like, I gave her protection. And I love the modern interpretation of that myth, especially with the historical evidence surrounding it, with like Gorgon heads presiding over places for women as kind of this protector. And I think that's also the role that the Aegis kind of takes on for lore as well, because there's a Gorgon head on the front of it, and it's very terrifying, and no one wants to look at it. So I like that symbolism and continuity throughout history and the storytelling.
I also really liked that Lore admitted that she related to the Gorgon as well.
I don't think it's a bad thing to relate to. I think it's powerful.
It's not. I think I was very proud that she did that, because she finally admitted to herself. She's like, this isn't a bad thing. This is something I want to be.
Which is all part of her character arc, which is very good. I enjoyed Lore as a character. I don't think there was I don't have anything bad to say about her. I think she was very well rounded. She had her good flaws, she had her virtues. None of them were like outlandish or all over the place. She was a very real character. I loved the character writing in this. What can I say?
I related a lot to her. I was like, anger issues? Check. Need to constantly be in control? Check. Trauma? Check. Need I go on? No.
Check.
Depression? Check. What character did you relate to most?
I liked Miles. He was just part of it.
He was
just happy to be included. I'm just happy to be included.
I still was super suspicious of him, but
aren't you
for those little parts?
I'm a little bit sus.
A little. At times.
But
You have your moments.
I enjoyed Miles. I enjoyed the role he played. He was like, I don't have a lot, but here are the resources that I do have, and I'm going to give them all to you and utilize them in clever, unexpected ways that you didn't think would be super relevant to the plot. But lo and behold, here we are. Like, who would have thought his internship at Columbia would have come to be like an important thing? He's like, oh yeah, I know that building. I went on there as a tour as part of my internship. And it's like, coming in clutch again.
Literally vital. Also, he was so supportive. Like, he got thrust into this world of like what would be absolutely insane to any normal person, and he said, okay, you actually truly believe this, so even though I don't believe it yet, I'm gonna go with it because I'm gonna support you. And then as he realized it was, it's true, they were actually in this world, he was like, okay, what can I do to help you get through this?
And he's like, and here's your oxygenated bleach. Here's your oxygenated bleach,
He said, I got as fast as I could. And he was funny. There's some good quips in this. I love when Castor was straight up saw her going into like this breakdown and was like, oh my god, do you know the joke about the birds? She was like, what?
Okay, but like I also kind of liked that because it was
so cute.
It's a cute way of grounding her, and it worked, and she responded well to it, and he kept doing it. But it was
nice.
It kind of confused me when Bellin, Aristos' son, he told a joke before blowing up a street, and I was like, oh, is that Castor? And then it wasn't, and I was like, I just thought that was a weird trait that they both shared.
I thought the same thing on that part. But also, I really liked that Castor did that because it showed that he was, aware of her and he was paying attention to her, which you don't always see that trait in guy characters. You'll see it kind of in the aftermath, not during it. So you could see that he was understanding of her feelings and what she was going through, and it was very nice.
Yeah, they were so in tune. It was very cute.
Also, how sad was it that she just thought he was dead for 7 years?
Very sad.
Very sad.
Very sad indeed.
Also, the trauma and like realizing that a choice that you made as a 10-year-old child caused the death of your entire family, and not just the death, but the brutal murders.
Oh, yes. She probably didn't even want to think about that one. She literally didn't want to think about that one. She repressed the shit out of it.
That is so much to have to go through. And then, like, just right after that, it was like sexual assault. Here you go. Serve it on a platter.
Literally, Laura did not catch a fucking break.
She did with Gil, but not really in the long run because he was a god. She just didn't
Yeah, in the
know
long
it.
run, it was just another instance where she didn't have control. Also, like, the idea of control and the illusion of control is an interesting tie into the way that Laura copes with her sexual assault.
I think you're right that control plays such a huge part in her character. And it's interesting because every time she gets angry, she loses that control. So she loses that almost like integral part of herself.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very interesting to read how well it was written, that it showed that almost like animalistic instinct that would take over and she'd lose that control of herself.
Yeah, and I think it's like also really important to think about that you and I have undergone training for like dealing with victims or survivors of sexual assault due to like our career. We were both RAs in the dorms, so we've dealt with stuff like that. And one of the most important things that like they cannot stress enough is that you need to give the person who's experienced this control back, and you
Mhm.
need to let them have like control over like the space that you talk in, the stuff that you talk about, what they do afterwards. Just like Laura's relationship with control is really interesting considering her past as well. How well did you think this book represented real life issues such as like sexism and sexual assault?
I thought it was a little bit more obvious than it is in real life, just because it was very blatant, very out there with like all of the misogyny and the talk about the sexual assault and things like that. Because a lot of times people don't talk about it that openly, or they're not that obvious with how they say. They don't outright say, "Oh, you're a girl, you don't have any rights," but they'll think it, and it'll come out in the way that they say things. So I think in that form it was a little bit unrealistic, but I really, really liked that they brought it out and they talked about it and they discussed, yeah, that's fucked up.
I would like to make a counterpoint to that
Go ahead.
because in relationship to misogyny, I feel like everything about Laura's lifestyle and the reason that she wanted to distance herself from it was because of how it like magnified the bad parts of everything: violence, anger, misogyny, just stuff like that. So I think the point of like it being so out there is because of her lifestyle that she lives in and why it's like a bad lifestyle to follow.
Mm-hmm.
And then as for Laura talking about her sexual assault, I would argue that she put off talking about it until the literal last second that she could. She had these conversations with Iroh and she's like, "Oh, I can't go back to the Odyssetes." And they're like, "Why not? And was it like really that bad of a thing that you did?" And she's like, "Yeah, they think it was pretty bad." And she doesn't tell them what it is. I don't even think she ever outright explicitly says what it is, but we as the readers know because she starts having flashbacks in her narrative. Even to Iroh, she like doesn't even say what happened. She's just like, "You would have let him do that and still go like walking among you, leading you." And it's heavily implied up until the moment that it's finally revealed, but they don't really dance around it once it's revealed. And I really appreciate the brutal honesty and kind of like the steps of recovery and how it kind of sticks with you after the event that's happened.
Mm. I would also say that she didn't really have any steps of recovery from that. She
For sure.
didn't do anything to work through the feelings and work through the trauma or any of it in her life, even with the murder of her family.
Mm-hmm.
Like she started to talk about it, but only to Athena, who then betrayed her, which added on to all of that trauma. So,
She has like so many repressed memories and walls, and definitely PTSD like flashbacks, just like how they're written in the book.
mhm, yeah. But I would argue that, she didn't heal from it at all.
And you know what? Maybe healing is yet to come for her
I
because,
hope so.
yeah, because she seems like at the end of the book, she seems like she's in a really good place with her friends.
With her friends, yeah. Because I think she finally let herself open up and let them into her life.
Mm-hmm.
Because before she was like, oh yeah, they're just, near my life. They're like a part of it, but they are not my life.
Mm-hmm. Even with Miles at the beginning of the book, Miles is her roommate with Gil, of course, and Miles tries to like talk with her about his death, and she's like, I don't want to talk about it. So I think that lore at the beginning of the book is a very different lore, and she's undergone a wonderful character arc at the end of the book.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think she's hugely different because she's not hiding the sides, like the different parts of herself that she was hiding before. Like Miles didn't know anything about her fighter side.
Mm-hmm.
He saw the roommate side. He saw the side of her that would fix up the house around her and take care of people, but he never saw that aggressive, angry side of her. And so she kind of opened up to everyone and she let them see all of those different parts of her, even the traumatic parts that she didn't talk about.
For sure. And then again, looping back to that theme of control, Laura tried to project this very idealized persona of who she wanted herself to appear as. And that reminds me of like the quote that her father told her, not even the Spartans were Spartan.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a story that they tell that gets morphed into what history wants it to be. So she is like obsessed with honor, obsessed with becoming a legend. And she's like, I want this to be the image that's projected throughout history. And the reality is, like, what she eventually finds out is that she can't be everything to everyone all the time, you know? And I think that really shows. Going into the final confrontation with Castor, she says, with it or upon it, reference to coming home with a shield from battle in Sparta. And he's like, don't say that. And she like remembers the words of her father and she's like, okay, then I won't. Because not everything has to be die hard, hardcore all the time anymore for her.
Mm-hmm. I think she still thinks like that. It's going to be very hard for her to kind of flip that idea, but yeah.
And that's all part of healing. I think it's very much a story about like healing within yourself and coming to that inner peace with who you are compared to who you want others to think you are.
Yeah, I think she very much had this image that she wanted to portray, and she only showed, like, she almost had a different character for each person she knew.
Absolutely.
So it was interesting to see how she kind of broke that apart and built it all into one version of herself, right before the final battle.
Mm-hmm. That was a really beautiful way of putting it.
Oh my god, thank you.
You want to rate this book, Honor?
I would rate this book a solid 4.5 out of 5.
I was also going to go
I
with the
loved it.
0.5s this time. I would also do 4.5 out of 5. Solid.
Right?
Uh,
Where do you think it lost points for you?
the beginning being so confusing for me. I was disoriented. I'm fucking dumb, man. I, I need my hand held. But you know what? They threw me into the fray and I figured it out, but still. Like,
Mhm.
just like a tiny bit. I loved it otherwise. Where would you say this book lost points for you?
Honestly, I would say with the fact that a lot of the twists were like easily guessable,
Okay.
and also the slight bit with the end just kind of felt like it wrapped up really quickly, and I wanted it just a little bit longer.
I'd agree on the ending, but I like when twists are predictable because it makes me feel smart.
I like when some of them are predictable. I felt like they were a little bit too predictable,
Mm-hmm.
which is good because that meant the foreshadowing throughout was excellently done.
Mm-hmm.
I just I would have liked like two or three more to be a little bit harder for me to guess.
No, that's a fair assessment, I'd say.
But mostly it lost points for the quick wrap up at the end.
Yep. Fair enough. I agree with that. Who would you recommend this book to?
I think I would be very cautious with how I give the recommendation because I definitely think I would want to warn them about the gore and the sexual assault.
Mm-hmm.
But anyone that I know is okay with that sort of thing, I'd be Oliver, I'd be like, you need to read this. If I know they liked the Hunger Games, I'd be like, as long as you're okay with this, here's the trigger warnings, read it. And like shove it in their face and like
Well, if
read
they
more.
read The Hunger Games, I'd assume they'd be okay with this stuff.
One would hope so.
I'd hope
In which
so.
case,
Well, if they
I
read and
ho-
liked The Hunger Games, I'd assume
read
they'd
and
be okay
liked.
with content warnings on lore.
Yes, read and liked The Hunger Games. I would throw this at them. Straight
Percy
up
Jackson
chuck it.
fans who are looking for something a little bit more intense, I'd recommend this to them.
I think adult Percy Jackson fans. I don't know that like the 12-year-olds that read Percy Jackson, I would not recommend this to them because I don't think they're ready for it. But
I probably
yes.
would have read
Like
this at
16
12.
and up.
I would have read this at 12, but I should not have read it at 12 if I was 12.
Absolutely. That's pretty much, I think, pretty much when I read The Hunger Games, right? Yeah.
Yeah. No, and like
Yeah.
a shit ton of stuff in the Hunger Games flew over my head. So if you're 12 and you're reading this, some of the stuff might fly over your head.
Some of it's very blatant, obvious in your face too. So I would say 16 and up for who I would recommend it to.
Yeah, overall, Lore is a very good book, and you should read it too, if you're okay with the content warnings. No
and
pressure.
you like Greek mythology and the Hunger Games.
Yes. All right, so that is a wrap on our review and discussion of Lore by Alexandra Bracken. If you like this podcast, we're planning to post every other week on Friday, bi-weekly on Fridays, not twice a week, every 2 weeks.
We also have a TikTok and a YouTube and Instagram. We're all at Young Adult Reviews. We post fun book content, honestly, anything book related. So if you like that sort of stuff, you know where to find us.
On our social media, we will be giving teasers for our next podcast, so follow us for a sneak peek where I get kind of artsy with it. I don't know about Honor, but I very much enjoy it. You can also drop suggestions, which we may or may not get to, and you can get fucked. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
That is a wrap on the podcast and a book. Oh, that was a good one.
Thanks for watching.